Many thanks on this episode to author, creator, Charise Harper. Charise, thank you for joining and talking with me for a few minutes.
Yeah, I love talking about books. This will be great.
Same, absolutely. We on this episode are talking about Wrong Friend. I know that we've had the chance to chat before about some of your previous work, but delighted to be talking about this book. We did a written interview a few years ago about comics and memory and things of that nature. And Wrong Friend is on the way very soon. So curious about what makes the comics form ideal for you in storytelling and sharing the stories that you want to tell.
I would have to say that my favorite thing to write is dialogue. So comics are perfect for that because basically they're the stories moved ahead by like little prompts, but obviously the illustrators, great illustrations, but my part would be writing the dialogue, and that's my favorite thing to write. So that is a perfect medium for me. And I like the pacing of comics in that you can speed things up, you can slow things down, you can have moments of reflection where it's up to the reader to decide what is happening, and that you're not told exactly what is going on all the time, and it's up to the person reading it to decipher from the illustrations and from what the character says as to what is happening in that moment. Whereas regular prose, I think you're pretty much given, this is what's happening. The person's sad or happy or upset. And that's not happening in comics. You're figuring that out for yourselves, which is also great practice for kids who are reading the comics because not everybody reacts in the same way to a situation. And, maybe there's something in the comic that they haven't seen before. And they're like, oh, so wow, that's an interesting way that the person's angry and you didn't really know. But you could
Mhm.
kind of tell now that I'm looking at it. So I think it's maybe somewhat informative, but for me it's just it's the most fun. I have the most fun when I'm writing. I seriously think when I'm writing comics, there's many moments where I'm like, "God, I love this. This is so great." Not that the comic I'm doing is so great, but just the format and thinking of it in your head, because you do, when you are writing a graphic novel, you do give the illustrator the setting at the front of the panel, like what is happening, what do you see, and then you go ahead and you write your dialogue, and then the illustrator uses that information to draw the pictures.
Yeah. What was the creative spark for this current project for Wrong Friend?
I wanted to write a book about friendship for a long time, and I had thought about writing like a a how-to friendship. I wrote a book about embarrassment, and it had a bunch of different comics about embarrassing things that you could do. And I was trying to figure out how to write, a bunch of comics about friendships and what could go wrong and what could go right. And then I was thinking back on my own journey with friendship, and I had previously done another book called Bad Sister, where
Mhm,
I
mhm.
wrote a graphic novel about all the bad things I did to my brother growing up, and as sort of like a big please forgive me kind of book for him. And there there was a section of that book where I was talking about this game we used to play. We used to play this game with this giant inflatable tube, and we used to call it the flying donut, where this older kid would throw the tube and we would be waiting, and then we'd try and run away from it as he tried to hit us and knock us over onto the grass, which sounds horrifying, but we loved this game, I guess, because it had just the right amount of danger. And if you got if
Mhm.
you got if you got hit on the sidewalk, I mean, that was pretty much the end of the game because someone was bleeding. But we love this game. And so the older kid that threw the donut was uh, my best friend's older brother at the time. And I mean, he's still her, but that was my best friend at the time. And she contacted me when she saw that comic. I guess she'd been following me on Instagram and I didn't know it. And the reason why we weren't still friends is because she was the girl in Wrong Friend who decided that we couldn't be friends because she was 2 years older than I was, and she was off to high school and I was in elementary school. And so she cut all contact off with us, with between us. And so she contacted me when she saw bad sister, which was years ago, and she just said she's felt terrible her entire life about how she
Hmm.
treated me. Which was, it brought tears to my eyes, and she was crying, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is such a big moment for her and for me. I mean, my mom said she'll come back to you one day. She didn't say it was going to be like over 25 years. It was going to take till this
Yeah.
this friend came back to me, but so that was such a strong moment in my adult life about a moment that had happened in my childhood life that I just rethought about how did that affect me really, and did some deep
Hmm.
thinking about how was that like your best friend suddenly decides you aren't going to be their friend anymore. And it's not because of anything you did, it's just circumstance. I mean, I suppose it could be the same thing as somebody moving away, but instead she was still there. She just was like, no, we're not friends. So that gave me a lot to think about, and that's sort of how I started working on Wrong Friend.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the personal history that goes into your work, and I also love the collaboration. I know Bad Sister was also a collaboration with Rory Lucey, and so I'm curious about what it was like to continue that collaboration in this book.
It was really great. The first thing he said to me when he read the script was, "I get to draw your brother again." So that was really, he was really excited about that. And he did such an amazing job. He actually went to Vancouver, and where that's where I grew up, and saw the kinds of houses, and I gave him my address where I used to live, and he went by there, and he does so much research into the clothes that, the clothes that were popular at the time. And I mean, it's like this huge gift. Like, so like I have memories of all the things I wrote about, but someone's given me like new memories, and they've illustrated my life for me, and forever I will have that. It's like, wow, I mean, I know it's a book and it's for other people, but for me I've got these two books that are like so special, and I can't even believe it. It's amazing. And oh my goodness, he's so good. Such a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
illustrator.
It's a beautiful book. Both are. I finished my review copy earlier this week and enjoyed it immensely. I know that you explore a lot and you look at these personal moments, the moments that mean a lot to you. What do you hope that readers take with them from the book after they're finished?
I guess that I think that, that's a hard question because it's not like I wrote the book with purpose as opposed to just, I mean, I wrote the book telling my story, and now I'm going back and saying, okay, what is the purpose of this book? And I think if there
Hmm.
was a purpose, I would say that there's really, we grow up, and I don't know if, we feel like we need a best friend, right? Everybody's got a best friend, and there's all these stories about, oh, she's my best friend, this is my best friend, or he's my best friend, and I don't know. I mean, I had this best friend, and that I've never really had a best friend since then, like who is everything. But I don't know that you can't sort of make your own best friend by cobbling together this quilt of all these other friends and friendships. And you're not looking for this one person that can fill all your needs. You're looking for,
Hmm.
okay, this is my person that likes to draw like I do, or this is the person that likes movies like I do. This is the person that does this for me. This is the person where we talk about my parents and how annoying they are. Or this is the person, that does this thing for me or likes hiking or whatever it is. And I feel like for me, this has worked really well. This sort of having varied friendships that fill different needs, and so not everybody in my circle needs to be interested in all the things I'm interested in. And what
Hmm.
that does is also makes me interested in other things because, if we're hiking buddies, then that's our main focus as friends. But, my hiking buddy could be someone who also, is a engineer, and they tell me about all the things they're making. And I find that, oh, wow, that's interesting. I never would have known that because I am not picking someone who is exactly like me. And I think that is the benefit of having a wider gap of friends, that a wider searching in a wider net for your friendships, because then you are learning things about other people, and you're not just singularly like, I'm only friends with people who are writers and write graphic novels, and that's it. No. it's like it's a broader group and it's more interesting and more fulfilling. At least I think so. So but you get caught as a kid that you're like, oh, you're supposed to have this best friend, and there's movies about it, and they're like doing everything together, and I think that's fantastic if you were lucky enough to do that. I mean, it's great to have a best friend, but I still think that you can have meaningful friendships that are equal to the best friendship by cobbling together your own best friend between all other friends.
Well, we've been talking comics, graphic novels, and we opened with your love of the medium and how wonderful it is to write in and explore in. What do you think makes these books, this medium, so important for readers of all ages?
Hmm. I think I mean, I grew up reading comics, French comics, but because my parents wanted my brother and I to learn how to speak French, and so they gave us French comics to read. And
Nice.
I think it's if you're starting out reading, comics are great because I remember reading Asterix comics is what one of the ones we would have. Um, and looking at the pictures and thinking, what's happened here? Like, I don't know what that says. And I'm gonna try to cobble that together by the image. And
Hmm.
I'm gonna use these images to help me figure out what's going on here. And and I think also you see different things every time you look at something, you see a different thing. So I think it's the kind of thing that kids would read more than once, probably. I certainly read all my comics more than once. And it's just it's like a TV show, but where you get to decide how fast you're going through the comic. You get to decide what different parts mean, and there's no music. You have to make your own music. What's happening here? There's no warning, like if something bad's about to happen, that the soundtrack is telling you. It's kind of like life a little more than a TV show in the sense that you are adding to it. It's you have to add something to reading a comic. It's not a passive experience.
And I love that as well. Love that. And you get to control the time in
Yeah,
comics. You get to control your own pace.
yeah, you definitely do. So I think the each reader brings something to the story that probably is different and wasn't there, and that's their contribution to walking away from that story with a feeling or a sense or an understanding of something that the next person that read it would be different. So it's going to be different for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get to the final question about where people can find the book and find information about you, did we miss anything? I always like to make sure that I ask guests if there's anything that we should have talked about, anything that you'd like to make sure that gets included in the interview.
I guess I would maybe just say that maybe some people don't know how this works when you write a graphic novel. So my job is the writer, and obviously it's my story, so I knew what I was writing about. And then I write the story the way I think it needs to be done, and then I give it to an editor. And that person works at the publishing company, and they look at it, and their job so my job is I'm in it. I'm in the story, right? I'm writing the story. Their job is kind of if you imagine an airplane going overhead and looking at if you've ever been in an airplane and you go overhead and you look at the fields and you can see all the squares and all the different shapes of the houses and everything. That's their job. They're looking at my book from above and they're seeing how it looks and they're seeing like, well, there's a mistake. That field's supposed to be square and it's round. And so they're kind of their job is to look at my book and they're not in it. It's hard to find the mistakes when you're in it. But when someone's looking from above, they can see all the mistakes. And so they're coming from an outside perspective and they can see what, that, hey, maybe is this what you wanted to say? Because this is what this looks like. And I'm like, oh no, that's not what I wanted to say. Or they say, had you thought about doing this? So the editor is very, very, very important. It's important to have somebody you trust, and it's important to have somebody that can get back to you with things that you understand. And sometimes you get notes and you're like upset because you're like, I love this part. I would never take this part out. But then, the more you think about it, they could be right or they could be wrong. And that's a discussion you have. But generally, I find that my editors are so helpful and the book is 100% better because I have somebody else helping me. So once we finish our script and we're all done, then the book gets handed over to the illustrator, and I have no connection or ability to talk to the illustrator. They don't want me to talk to them. And it's the art director who is now directing the art with the script that's been approved. And they talk to the illustrator and they say, okay, let's, I don't know what they talk about because I'm not part of it. So they have their own talk and they do sketches and stuff. Now I see sketches when sketches are done of the book before they put the colors on, they send them to me and they say, do you have any comments about, the sketches? And I get to say, oh, well, I'm a little confused here. I mean, I always try to say I love a lot of stuff because everybody likes that. And I always do love a lot of stuff. And so then I get to comment on the sketches and they take that back and they decide whether that comment is good or not and to share that with the illustrator. And then the illustrator once they've got the sketches approved, they do the colors and then I get to look at the colors again. And then they take it back and they say, okay, the colors are approved. You go ahead and they finish the book. And I get to weigh in on the cover and stuff if I like it or not. But I'm not calling Rory, who is my illustrator on this book, and saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? I think this color would be better." I don't do any of that. So the first time that Rory and I get to talk is when we actually probably do a podcast or something together. We get to
Hmm.
talk about the book and what we both thought, and that's really kind of exciting for us because we're like, "Oh, finally, let's talk."
Yeah, yeah. The creative journey all the way through, and thank you for tracing those steps. Sometimes books seem mysterious, like they just come together, like it appeared under a tree one day. So it's nice to hear
Right.
the backstory.
Right. Yeah. And so this one took like probably over like 2 years, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Where can listeners find out information about you? Where can they get copies of the book and support when it's out?
Um, the book is available at any bookseller. So your local bookseller is always a good place to start. If there's an independent bookstore, that's the one that you should check out first. And if you can't do that, then you can always go to an online place that provides books and it'll be there too. To find out about me, you can follow me on Instagram with my name, Charise Harper, or go to my website, which is also chariseharper.com. So pretty easy, except for spelling Charise, which is kind of challenging. Charise.
Yes, yes. And I'll provide links to those as well. I greatly appreciate the return conversation. Glad to have you back as you're working, exploring, and telling new stories. And many, many thanks. I hope that people will go out there and check out your work.
Oh, I do too. So thanks a lot for having me. So fun to chat.